this section with other endocrine glands, I have several videos posted about each individual thing that we're going to go over, so make sure you view those. They're not very long, around 4 minutes each or so. So on this particular page, we're going to go through this quickly, since on those smaller timed videos, they're in more detail. Okay, we have the pineal gland, which is ultimately responsible for our sleep-wake cycles. The thymus, which is located in the mediastinum area, is for our immune system. One of its functions is to mature our T cells through a hormone called thymosin. Okay, the thyroid gland. So thyroxine is also known as T4 or tetraiodothyronine. And then T3 is also known as triiodothyronine. Now notice that the word iodine is embedded within these thyroid hormones. So iodine is a key ingredient into making thyroid hormone. One of the reasons why you're seeing around 1 in 4 people in the U.S. with thyroid dysfunctions is because of low iodine intake. Now, iodine is not something that we just consume on a regular basis. Even if you had a well-balanced diet, there's just not enough iodine in our soil to get into the food, to get into our bodies. So you have to supplement with it. And the form is potassium iodide. One of the companies that I recommend is Biotics Research, and they have a liquid potassium iodine that is an awesome supplementation. But so in my practice and clinically, one of the things that I work with patients on is thyroid dysfunction. Now, it is possible for the thyroid to be damaged for different reasons. There's autoimmune. So there's other things that can cause thyroid dysfunction, but one of them is iodine deficiency. Okay, in one of the subsequent videos, I go into the histology and talk a little bit more about the follicular cells and parafollicular cells. So make sure you view that. Okay, here's the thyroid. It is located in the throat area. So this is the so-called Adam's apple. So males and females have this. Its official name is the thyroid cartilage. And then just below that, you've got the bilobed thyroid gland. Okay, the part that connects the right and left lobe is the isthmus. And on the posterior aspect of the thyroid, you see these 4 dots, which are about the size of a grain of rice. And those are the parathyroid glands that release parathyroid hormone that we talked about on another lecture video. Okay, the adrenal glands do sit on top of the kidney. There is a subsequent lecture video specifically on the adrenals. Please watch that. It goes into detail on what each of these zones release. And make sure you take notes on that. So what they did is they took a cross-section. Okay, there's a cross-section from the adrenal glands, and so enlarged it. And you'll notice that there are 4 layers. Okay, 3 layers are in the actual cortex. Okay, so we have the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla. Now, the word cortex and medulla is actually applied to a lot of different body parts. And all it really means is the cortex is the outer part of an organ or structure, and the medulla is the inner part. Okay, for example, you have the cerebral cortex. And the cerebral cortex of the brain is the outside part of the brain. The medulla is the inside part of the brain. Bone, the outer cortical margin or the cortex of bone, the outer part of bone. The inside hollow part of bone is the medulla, the medullary cavity. The kidneys, which we'll look at that later, it has an outer cortex, the renal cortex. So renal is a fancy word for kidney. So you have the renal cortex, and the inside part of the kidney is the renal medulla. So cortex just simply means the outer part, and the medulla simply means the inner part. And then whatever word it's attached to, then that's the structure that we're looking at. So the adrenal cortex is composed of 3 zones called the zona glomerulosa, fasciculata, and reticularis. And then the medulla part is where you're going to find the release of epinephrine and norepinephrine. Okay, I'll talk about that on that subsequent video. So make sure you look at that and what each zone, what hormones they release and those functions. Okay, the same with the pancreas, a subsequent video, please watch that. And I get into the different cells of the pancreas and what they release, including insulin, glucagon, and the name of the cells that release all that. Okay, but here is gross anatomy of the pancreas. It does have a head, and then the body and the tail of the pancreas. The pancreas is intimately connected with the duodenum. Okay, so this tube that you see here is the first part of the small intestine. The small intestine has 3 parts to it in order of food as it travels through these tubes. You have the duodenum, the jejunum, and then the ileum. And we'll look at that later on when we do GI system. Okay, so the stomach would actually be up in this area. So the content in the stomach, which for now we'll just call food, it's technically chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, but the food that's in the stomach was gradually released into the duodenum, and the presence of that food that is also chemistry. So this is getting into biochemistry. So technically at the end of the day, the food that you eat, your body is going to interpret it as a chemistry. So your body chemistry, your digestive enzymes and digestive juices and all that is going to interact with the food chemistry to ultimately produce nutrition for you. And so the presence of that food or chemistry releases a chemical signal to tell the pancreas to release its particular digestive juices to help you break down food and assimilate it and do all that properly. Okay, so I get into that subsequent pancreas video. Okay, the gonads in males is the testes, and in females is the ovaries. And both sexes have testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and there's just more testosterone. Typically there's more testosterone in males, and females have more estrogen and